Hey, what's up ladies and gentlemen, Casper here. Today we are going to be looking at a very simple way to beat every offbeat opening out there. Now wait a second, what is an offbeat opening? Well, in simple terms, an offbeat chess opening refers to an unconventional or less commonly played opening strategy compared to more mainstream or traditional openings in chess, such as the St. George defense with pawn to a6 on move 1 if you're playing black, or the Budapest if you're playing black pieces as well. And another example would be the Grob opening for white, or for now let's just say any opening that does not begin with e4, e5 or d4, d5 is what we refer to as an offbeat opening, arguably of course. So what I'm going to do in this video is to show you how to beat offbeat openings against white players when you're playing black pieces. Guys, I have one system for you that you're going to love so much. You're going to be playing the same thing over and over against any offbeat opening. And the system I'm talking about is coming from the English rut. What? Watch. If white plays pawn to e4, you normally go pawn to e5, but the rat defense is where you play pawn to d6 first, as if you want to play the perk, so that after d4 you immediately play knight d7. This is what we call the rat defense. The idea is just to go pawn to e5. I guess you have already watched my full video on the rat defense, and I have a free mini course on this very wonderful defense, you guys. For example, if white plays knight f3 in this position, you can simply go pawn to e5 without having to worry about an early queen exchange after de and de. Because of this knight, white is unable to capture our queen on d8, which is one of the reasons, and somehow this transposes in the Filito defense if you think about it, where white can play bishop c4, preparing for this early checkmate if you are not careful, or knight g5 if you carelessly play knight f6. And so I remember recommending bishop b4 check first, to avoid blundering, so that next you can play bishop c5. This time, if knight g5 comes, double attacking your weak f7 pawn, you simply have knight h6, and next you're going to castle short. Or if they play something like queen d5 intending to mate, since your dark squared bishop is not sitting on e7, you can simply play queen e7 and you defend that. Once again, this is called the rat defense, where we start with pawn to d6 on the first move. A similar idea would be the Brazilian defense, where we immediately put our queen on e7 after white plays knight f3 attacking our e5 pawn, for example. Instead of defending that pawn with knight c6, we simply play queen e7. Again, the idea is to avoid any queen trade possibilities right in the opening stage after de and de, so that white cannot take our queen once again. If white plays knight c3, you can simply go pawn to c6 if you want. Later on, we free up the dark squared bishop after playing queen c7. For more about the rat, make sure to watch my rat defense video, very interesting video. Now let's look at some practical examples against offbeat openings. First opening, against the English opening, pawn to c4. Wow, in case you don't have any proper prep against the English opening, just play the rat defense. I'm telling you, most of your opponents will find this hard to crack. For example, d6, and after something like knight c3 at the top played move, well, you simply go knight d7. Why not knight f6? Well, knight f6 calls for the perk defense, which is so predictable and somehow delays your development if you intend to play the rat defense. So just go knight d7. And at this point, most of your English opponents are going to play pawn to g3, because that's what they do in the English opening, trying to fianchetto their light squared bishop. But this is when you simply go pawn to e5. Very simple stuff. If bishop g2, yes, you can play whatever you want, but listen, what do we do in the typical rat defense whenever we see knight c3? We always want to play pawn to c6, right? And this is okay because we're also trying to avoid any captures on b7. So let's say white plays pawn to e3 because they want to put their knight on e2. This is when you can play knight gf6 if you want, but hey, I would also consider pawn to f5 so that I can put my knight behind. let's say knight g e2 because they want to castle short. So you go knight g f6. And after castle short, you simply play bishop e7, and on the next move you castle short as well. But there's this move pawn to d4, which looks a little bit challenging because white wants to, somehow destroy your center. But hey, this is very good for you. Just castle short, and if they take, you simply take back with your d pawn. Once again, white cannot take your queen. Next, you would love to put your queen either on c7 or on b6, which is even more active. And thanks to this pawn on c6, which is guarding the d5 and the b5 squares, just like in the rat defense, guys. So same stuff, same ideas. Where is your pawn break? Sometimes later in the middle game, you might want to play pawn to f4, like seriously, and try to cause some chaos like that, or even pawn to e4. It all depends on your strategic plan that you come up with. No need to memorize anything. So this is how you fight the English opening using our rat defense strategies. And let me tell you one secret about this approach, you guys. The rat defense seems to perform well against the English opening for one reason: the misplacement of the c pawn, which is on c4. So because of this pawn, white has no time to play queen b3, or in some lines, bishop c4. This is one secret, you guys. Another opening where white's c4 pawn can be disadvantageous for them is the queen's gambit. For example, after pawn to d4, just go pawn to d6, which works well against the queen's gambit structure. If you don't believe me, you can check in the master's database. Here it is. Black's win rate is like 37% after pawn to e5. Yes, because this time we don't even mind exchanging our queen very early in the opening stage, cause white is behind in development and they don't even have bishop c4 due to the misplaced pawn on c4, which I talked about, you guys. So this is a big deal. Again, after something like knight c3, remember what we said. You can play bishop e6 if you want, targeting this pawn, or simply pawn to c6, stopping knight d5 or knight b5 in the near future. If knight to f3, attacking your pawn, trust me, pawn to f6 solves everything. If pawn to e4 is played, or pawn to e3, the best square for your king would be the c7 square. Let's say bishop e3, you go bishop e6, and even against castle long, you have no weaknesses or whatsoever. You can develop your queen's knight as you like. For example, knight d7 looks good. Let's say bishop e2 for some reason, maybe trying to connect rooks. Well, you can simply develop your knight like this, or go pawn to b6 depending on what strategy you choose. Exchange bishops like this. Imagine you're playing this in a real OTB tournament game. So this is how you beat offbeat openings, you guys, using the rat. So let me show you another offbeat opening where you can try the rat defense ideas. So you can also play the rat against white's knight to f3, which is sometimes called the Reti opening or the Zugatot opening. So if you don't know what to do, just go pawn to d6 once again. You don't know what white is up to. Maybe they might play pawn to d4 on the next move, and this is when you surprise them with a move knight d7 once again, because your plan is very simple, just to go pawn to e5 and that's all. In fact, the top played move in this position, as you can see in the Lichess database, is pawn to c4. What did we say about this? Well, against the rat, it can turn out to be a pawn misplacement and too slow for white. For example, you can just go pawn to e5. Once again, if de, just take back with your d pawn. Again, white cannot take your queen on d8. And again, whenever you see knight to c3, just know knight d5 is a possibility. That's why you always want to play pawn to c6, to stop that. And this is when white would play something like pawn to e3 or develop their light squared bishop this way. Again, you have so many options. If you want, you can go knight gf6 depending on your test, or simply pawn to f5. The same thing that you did in the English opening. After bishop g2, you now go knight gf6. Most of the times they will castle short and then you go bishop e7, and in the near future you're going to castle short. You also have queen c7 and queen b6, just like the position we saw in the English opening. And this is how history can repeat itself in chess. The rat defense can be used to play against many offbeat openings that you may not be aware of, or maybe that you just want to punish. What most white players like doing after knight to f3 is to fianchetto their light squared bishop immediately. Against this, you can still go d6, and after pawn to g3, you go knight d7 again, bishop g2, pawn to e5, and because of this possibility, white will play pawn to d3. So what do you want to do? Again, you go pawn to f5. That is if you want. Then white will castle short. So maybe white is playing some kind of a King's Indian attack, which started with a Zuckertort opening. But hey, you have so many options. You go knight gf6, and what do we see again? Pawn to c4 is the top played move in the Lichess database. After which you can simply go bishop e7 once again, just like what we did in the English opening. Let's say pawn to b4. You know what? Whenever you see some expansion going on the other side of the board, maybe try to do the same just to neutralize that attack. If pawn to b5, well and good for you because you have a new square for your knight, but you can just go ahead and castle short, put your king to safety as the first priority. Knight c3 may be played. Then you can even change your plan here. You can go queen e8 if you want to shift your queen this side, or put it here on h5 and start causing some chaos. Once again, you have pawn to f4 as your major pawn break. And the way we play this is we always want to put our rook on b8 because of this light squared bishop, because at some point you would love to play pawn to b6, right? So you don't want to hang your rook. And maybe you can also consider playing pawn to c6, I don't know, just to stop knight d5. If white plays knight h4 and also attacking your f5 pawn, which is undefended, well, you can just go knight b8 defending everything. If rook b1 is played, you go bishop e6, bishop a3, king h8. I mean, this is anyone's game where the best player has to win. For now, this is all I had for you. I'll make part 2 of this video where I will continue showing you how to beat offbeat openings that are mostly played by white players. So let me know what you think about this, and if you also want me to make part 2 of this video. And remember to subscribe to this channel, because that's how you encourage me to keep on making more wonderful videos just like this one. Hit the like button if at all you enjoyed watching this video, and hope to see you soon in my next video. Until next time, bye bye.